All right, well, hi, hello, and welcome to Better Data, Better Outcomes. Power Agentforce and CRM processes with better data collection. Now, today's fascinating webinar is sponsored by Form Assembly and their special guest, Salesforce, and produced by SmartBrief. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with SmartBrief, a future B2B company, and I'm so happy that I get to be here with all of you today as your moderator because chances are, in the world of AI innovation and progress, you are probably all feeling the pressure of rapidly evolving expectations. You're being asked to create a future of flawless, automated efficiency, but we all know that it is not just as easy as pressing a button or a snap of the fingers. Wouldn't it be nice if it was? Because yes, the future is bright and shiny, but in order to get there, we need the right tools and most of all, the right data. You cannot build that bright, shiny future on a foundation of broken data. So that is what we are here to explore in our webinar today. We're going to show you exactly how you can bridge the gap between where you are now and what you are envisioning for the future. We're going to explore how you can clean up and control your data collection with secure forms and outline how you can maximize efficiency and efficacy, all those good things, regardless of the size of your CRM team. I cannot wait to get started. We have a fabulous conversation headed our way. We've got lots to cover, and I'm just going to jump through a few housekeeping points that will really help you get the most out of our conversation today. So let's start out with a little bit of a tour of your audience console. I'm going to ask everyone, follow along with me, friends. Let's walk over to the right-hand side of your screen. You've got 3 tabs there. You've got chat, docs, and Q&A. So let's start out in the chat tab. I see some wonderful highs and hellos. Hey, James. Hey, Michael. We've got Robin and Zhang and Arlim and Jimmy. Jimmy, great name. That's a great name. Jimmy Arcade. I like it. Dixon Blue, another great name. We're going to hear more from Dixon in just a second. You hang tight for that one. Brej, we got all kinds of wonderful people here. Stay tuned. And as we go through, keep those highs and hellos coming. We want to hear from you. I want to know how your day is going. What are you up to? What you have for lunch? Chime in. We want to hear from you. And this is also where you can interact with the information that we're hearing. Share with the other people who are here in the audience. Let them know what you've tried, what has worked for you, and what resonates with you. That's all happening in the chat tab. If you go 2 little bunny hops over to the Q&A tab, this is where you get to ask questions directly of our incredible speakers. So this is where you can say, this is a specific question that I have that I've been wondering about, and our speakers will be able to get you some answers. Now, we're going to do our best to get to all of our questions live in our session today, but anything we don't cover in the live session, we will make sure you get an answer in email follow-up, so you can stay tuned for that. So keep those questions rolling in, and we'll either address them live or in email. All right, so that 3rd tab there right in the middle is the Docs tab. Now, we're going to hear a lot of really exciting stuff today, and the Docs tab is how you keep that information going after you leave the webinar. This is where you can get those takeaways that will help you bring this forward into your day-to-day life. So make sure you are opening those links and check out the resources there for you in the Docs tab. A few other quick notices here. If you have any tech issues today, little gremlins have gotten in the system. It happens from time to time, we all know. The first thing you're going to do is a browser refresh. That should clear them out. So try that browser refresh. We also have light mode that you can enable on your audience console. If those things are not working for you, post in the chat, and we have the wonderful Riley and Deanna here with us today. They will get back to you. So post in chat if you need a hand, and we've got lots of help and support here if you need it. Okay, last thing I want to say is we do have closed captioning available for you on the audience console. If you would like to enable that, I think we've got about 18 different languages. So there's lots of options for you, and that can be a nice help. So please do enable the closed captioning on your console if you'd like that. Stay tuned at the end of the webinar. We also do have a prize giveaway for you. We have a $250 Amazon gift card that we will be giving away at the end of our session. Now, you do need to be here live and present in order to win, and you do need to be with us all the way through the webinar. So stay tuned for that. We will get into that at the end of our chat. All right, speaking of chat, we have a ton of things to get through today. Look at how exciting this agenda is. I love this agenda. I cannot wait to get our conversation going. And if you have attended a webinar with Form Assembly and Salesforce before, you know that these are fun and interactive, and we really get to explore with a lot of passion. So what we're going to talk about today, what is AI-ready data? Do you have it? Do you even know? We're going to talk about that. How data quality impacts Agentforce and more. And then we're going to get into our panel conversation. We're going to get into how we improve data quality, impactful AI initiatives, and capturing efficiency gains. Very, very cool stuff coming our way. And then we'll do a little bit of a live Q&A. So who is going to lead us through this exciting conversation? Boy, let me tell you, we have a rock star crew here with us. I'm so excited to introduce you to, well, a return choice here on the webinar, the one and only Josh Straley, Director of Product Marketing at Form Assembly, and his special guest here with us, Dixon Blue, Senior Account Solution Engineer at Salesforce. Josh and Dixon, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Jess. Always happy to be here with your audience. There is not a more robust chat happening anywhere on the internet than inside of your webinar right now.
This is it. Yep. This is it. This is where it's at right now in the chat. Speaking of which, I have a question for each of you, but I'm going to very quickly open up a poll, and I'm going to show the results to everybody in just a second, but I'm going to ask the audience to head on over to the poll tab and give us an idea about the challenges that you've been running into. If you have these AI initiatives already going, where are you feeling those friction points? So we're going to give you a second to answer that poll. While you're doing that, Dixon and Josh, I'm going to ask you, and Dixon, maybe if we can get you to kick us off, and then Josh, introduce yourselves and tell us what you're excited to get into today.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exciting. I almost never get to go first in the introducing order of operations, so this is amazing. Hello, everyone, from a little bit all over the actual world. Super cool to have you all with us. My name is Dixon Blue. I am a solution engineer at Salesforce for our nonprofit team, and specifically our enterprise, so larger nonprofit customers. And I like to think of my role mostly as like technical problem solving nerd, essentially. My job to figure out where our nonprofit customers and potential customers are today, where they're trying to go in the future, what kind of futures they're trying to build, and then figure out the best solutions to bring to the table to bridge the gap between those two things. So helping nonprofits, maximize their impact every single day by bringing technology to the table to help out. It's one of the best jobs in the world, and I absolutely love it. So delighted to be here with y'all to talk all about how we build those AI and agentic futures together.
This is why we can't let you go first, Dixon. That was a really high bar. Josh,
Josh, what do you got?
Well, I mean, if you know anything about marketers, you know that we all don't take our roles very seriously, because it's always tough to say that a billboard helped anybody out, right? But similar to what Dixon said, one of the most exciting things, and the reason I brought this conversation to Smart Brief and this audience today, is that the bright and shiny future, as you said, Jess, is reliant on a foundation of quality data. And I continue to hear that from every audience, from my nonprofits who are trying to, get volunteers the right opportunities, or actually help the audiences that they serve and make sure that they show up for events, the distribution, all the way to enterprise businesses who are just trying to get in touch with customers and can't. Everything we're trying to do today to bring 2026 to life and have everything be smooth and easy relies on this foundation of data that not everybody has. I keep hearing these problems. And so it's rare that marketers get to actually solve problems. But as we dig into data quality and as we talk about like strategies to improve data quality today, I actually feel like I'm having a little bit of an impact. That's what I'm excited to dig into. I think this is an incredibly important topic in 2026 because, again, so much of what is appearing on our screens and in our phones is data. How that data gets to us is important, and that's what I'm excited to talk about today.
I love it. I love it. Also, Dixon, I realize I'm clapping wrong. I clap this way. It's this now, isn't it?
Yeah. Is it? I don't know. I like snaps and then sometimes.
Snaps. But I like snaps today. We're gonna go with snaps. I gotta be careful not to do that next to my microphone, right? That's. All right, so we're yes to that, all of that, Josh. I love that. Okay, we're gonna pull up that poll in just a second here, and we're gonna take a look at what we heard from the audience. But let me ask you guys, just gut feel. Do you think so? We had lack of accountability or ownership, poor data quality, lack of clear strategy or a clear business case, integrating challenges with existing systems, and inadequate internal expertise. Where would you each think? Let's go in the same order. Dixon, what do you think we're going to see as the top poll?
Yeah. I just want you to know that even though I was capable of doing so, I did not look at the answers before I'm saying what I'm about to say. But
Well done.
I would hedge my bets that this is a sort of like business strategy / use case challenge at its core. At the end of the day, AI and generative AI, powerful though it may be, is merely a tool, and it will not like silver bullet all of your problems in one go. But if you deploy it for a very specific reason towards a very specific and well-defined end, then it can be immensely powerful in helping you get there much, much better than any other solutions might. But oftentimes what's lacking is this sort of clear picture of what it is that we're actually doing with this tool and to what end. And I find that if you don't really have a good idea of what that target is, then it makes the entire rest of the process really blurry and really difficult to figure out.
Yeah.
So that's my guess.
Agreed. I think vision is important, especially to kick things off. I think ironically, the poll kind of like breaks into where you might be at as an organization with your AI initiative. You might have gotten past the vision point, and then you start to run into, okay, who's actually running the project? So I think it really depends on like where the organization would be. I bet with this audience, I'm going to say integration challenges, because if you came to a data quality webinar, you might say poor data quality, but I think a lot of people find that frustration where it's like, oh, I just don't have the data that my AI needs. That's where I'm going to peg it.
I love it. Okay, good. We've got some options here. Audience, I'm going to leave the poll open so you can continue to add your answers if you haven't already done so, but I'm going to pull it up on the screen now. So let's see where we're at. You guys nailed this, the numbers
Yeah.
1 and 2. Well done. Snaps for that. Well, good work. And Dixon, nice job on not cheating, even though you're right, you can see. I did tell them where they could see the answers coming in, and he did not use it. So well done. We have 2 clear winners here. Lack of clear strategy or business case, and then a number 2 answer of integration challenges with existing systems. So based on what you guys said, this is about what we would expect a group of people to be facing right now.
Yeah.
On par with average challenges. I don't know if that should make you all feel special or not special at all, but you are having the same problems that a lot of people are having. So at least that means that we're going to get some answers to that.
Yes. We'll say you're in good company.
There we go. That's the way to look. Yes. Thank you, Josh. We are in good company with our problems today, and we're going to find some solutions to them. I am going to stop sharing this. Thank you to everyone who answered that poll. We have a few more polls coming up, so stay tuned for those. But I think, Josh, we're going to kick things off with a little bit of a foundational chat. We're going to dig into some of these core questions we outlined on the agenda. Are you ready to get rolling?
Yes. And thank you, Jess. Whoops, accidentally stopped sharing the slides. So, as I mentioned, I've been hearing signals kind of from across the market that, data quality is something that people are thinking about a lot, mostly because when they start to build out their, call them broadly AI implementations, when they start to try to use, Data Cloud 360 inside of Salesforce, or even if they're going outside of the cloud and they're using Claude or Gemini to start doing reporting on data that they have, they're struggling to trust it. They're struggling to spin up agents that behave consistently. And what we're finding is that the data that we have, which may be a lot, you might have a data lake, you might have a system, a system of record that you think is a source of truth that you largely trust, but when you try to do things with it, well, the implementation is not working out the way you expect. It's because a lot of the data that we have, while it might look good on the surface, is not fully ready for AI. And so that got me thinking, hey, what do we mean? What is the actual definition of AI-ready data? So to figure that out, and I think a lot of people are surveying around this. I've seen a lot of little news articles online, but at the end of last year, we went out to some AI decision makers at organizations across several industries, and we started to ask them questions about their AI usage to find out exactly what organizations think makes data AI ready. And a lot of these questions that we asked them, and you'll have to forgive me, my slide says 2024, but this was a 2025 survey. A lot of the questions are very similar to what we just asked this audience. We asked about their usage of AI, and as a no-brainer, everybody at an organization typically is using AI more. We saw 9 in 10 said they increased their usage. But the worrying statistic here was that 3 in 5 said they were seeing conflicts in the data that was shown out of their AI tool with other data across their systems. That's an early red flag. If we dig into the data a little bit more, just to give the audience a good idea of, how the breakdown here looked, people across the board, very few did not use AI more over the last year. But the conflict is the really interesting thing. Not only did they say that the data was conflicting with data that they're seeing in their other systems, but they also said that they cannot consistently identify the source or the lineage of the AI training in their data, which is worrisome. We're all familiar with hallucinations. If you can't figure out where the data is coming from, it's like, oh, is this data from my business or was this a hallucination? It's troubling. So there's a little bit of a trust issue here when the data is not coming out of your AI implementation, your chatbot, whatever you're using, in a way you expect. Here's the other big red flag that we found in this survey, and it's about time. 43% reported that their team time was being spent cleaning data before AI or analytics use. Now, that's good if it's a foundational thing, right? We recognize that data quality is an issue. We need to get clean data into our system so that we can use it and report on it and trust on it. But the amount of time that people continue to report spending on cleaning is a little concerning. 3 to 5 hours cleaning for every 1 hour of actual analysis was one major answer. And something actually that we mentioned earlier. Basically, we asked this survey audience the same question we just asked this audience. Why do you think your AI is underperforming? Integration challenges and a lack of clear strategy were reported. So just to dig into those numbers a little bit more, 26 to 50%, 41% of that audience reported that they're spending almost 50% of their time cleaning data. Some people over here on the right said they're spending more time cleaning it. And the 3 to 5 hours wasn't even the most worrying symptom, because some people were only spending 1 to 2 hours cleaning data for every hour they spent analyzing it. But if you look over on the right, almost 10% of my surveyed audience said they were spending more than 5 hours cleaning data for every hour that they were actually getting to analyze it. That's not a good return. So, these are red flags, right? These are things that are really scary to me and to, I think, a lot of organizations as they start to build on their data foundations, try to build that agentic future, which is so close to in reach. But then they're having to come back to their data foundation to do some fixes. And here, I know these slides might be a bit small for our audience, but they're right at the top are the 2 answers that you provided. So as again, I said, you were in good company. Integration challenges, getting that data into the system for use for AI was one of the big issues, but then also a lack of key strategy was a close second there. So, when we start thinking about all of these stumbling blocks, these hurdles that people are experiencing, we start to piece together a picture of what is happening with these AI implementations. And we're seeing data quality impacting the things that people are trying to do with their data. Or, consider, where your data is collected as upstream, and you're trying to do things maybe in your system of record or further down your tech stack as downstream. So we're seeing gaps impact data quality. And those gaps look different depending on the audience. Some people reported that they were seeing, records that were incomplete. Perhaps they got a list that didn't include all of the fields they would normally select. Perhaps they have forms that don't, push back on you when you try to submit and you haven't filled in the full fields. Perhaps, again, a list import was not exactly perfectly populated, but incomplete records were reported as a major issue. Inconsistent values have been difficult. One of the reasons that people were seeing strange reporting was that, in some records, the age would be in a certain format, and then there would be a different date format, perhaps European versus US formats. That was causing issues. And then just downright incorrect data. When you have agents, especially in support cases, and they're trying to, handle cases as AI agents should, if they're operating off of data that is out of date or just wrong, it can make that experience worse for the human on the other end, right? Which is not what we want. We want these agents to be saving time for your teams while also providing great experiences. So all of these, kind of like really typical data quality problems are getting exacerbated when organizations are going to try to use that data in an AI implementation. So if you'd like the full results of the survey, I have a couple webinars and reports on the subject. Please visit formassembly.com. But after going through the data, from the survey, what we found was almost 6 C's of data quality. Unfortunately, there's an I that snuck in. But what we found, what people reported, was they needed clean data. The old ghost of duplicates kept coming up. They needed consistent data. They needed the format to be the same. They needed values to be standard across every record in order for reporting. And again, AI agents to be able to intake it. Completeness was a big issue for a lot of organizations. And there's a lot of tools and practices that can help there, but that's still sticking around. Contextual is a new requirement for data, especially in the CRM, because if you can relate records like cases to a contact record, like accounts to a contact record, like opportunities, that allows AI to figure out, exactly the relationship and the right answers to provide. So being better with the context between your records has become more important. Correct formatting, again, becomes an issue for consistency across records. And then last but not least, integration. And it was our second answer from our audience here, and it was the first answer for our surveyed audience. Getting data into the systems that you need to use it is incredibly important. It's the only way that these AI implementations are going to work, is if the AI has access to it. So I wanted to bring this survey data again. I didn't want to go through the whole findings today, but because this informs the conversation that I wanted to have in front of this audience, which is really like, okay, so we recognize there's challenges with data quality. We recognize that we know where the challenges are. We know what good looks like. How do we actually get there where upstream and downstream data looks better? It's it's consistent, it's complete from the moment of intake all the way through to an agentic implementation. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. That's also why I brought Dixon on, for his expertise in the Salesforce ecosystem. I couldn't handle a data cloud report if you, tied me down to a chair and made me watch videos like Clockwork Orange. But I know Dixon can help fill some gaps there. So that's the discussion I wanted to have today, Jess, and thank you for bringing the audience together to have it.
Sounds like a great training tool, Josh. I don't know. That's
be effective.
All right. So, we did get an interesting comment. I'm just going to read out from the chat here. So all of these are true. I personally think the main reason for dirty data resulting in hours spent on cleaning is due to the lack of data modeling before collection or capture. In the business sector, data modeling is focused on database, neglecting the tool that is used to capture the data.
Yeah, and I agree, y'all. To be honest, data modeling is something that we don't do here at Form Assembly, but I think this relates to vision. Before you start to put processes in place, you absolutely need to take a look at how that process, both ideal state and a realistic state, and say, hey, this is how we're collecting data right now. This is how it's flowing into our system. Here's where the problems are. Here's what ideal state looks like. What can I do to fix that? I think vision, down to the process level is important. And thanks for that comment.
Yeah, that's what I was taking away from that too, is putting in that time and effort, early days, that strategy. And we are going to talk today a little bit about data collection and clean data collection. And I think that is an important aspect there. But I think really hitting on know why you're making these changes, know what you're trying to get to, and setting that strategy early on. Dixon, anything you want to add before we jump into? I've got lots of questions for you guys.
No, I think that is 100% true. And it goes back to just sort of like a different flavor of what I was talking about earlier, which is like understanding the why behind the things that you are doing. And if you don't have a clear idea at the outset of whatever project it is that you're doing, what data you're going to need to make that project work and what you're going to do with it once you have it, then it's hard to have like an appropriate framework to know like what formats you need to collect it in and how it needs to live and things like that. And then it can make everything super messy. So I super agree with that as a comment. Yeah. Lots of upfront work can save, and planning can save a lot of time and a lot of headache down the road. What's the saying about somebody who, if they had 24 hours to cut down a tree, they would spend the first 23 sharpening the axe?
That was not where I thought you were going, Dixon. I do not know that saying. What?
Yeah. I can't remember who said that.
I love it though. That's fabulous. I was going with like my dad's old. I was flashing back to being a kid and dad telling me to measure twice and cut once. But I like the idea of 23 hours of sharpening your axe. That's a great saying. Everybody listen to Dixon and sharpen your axe for the next 23 hours, and then we will get rolling. Speaking of which, all right, that's going to segue us in no way to my questions for you, but let's get into it. No, what I want to get into is, Josh, I want to go back to the survey that you were bringing up, because you got some great data points, and I would love to dig into those a little bit further. Josh, Dixon, you ready for that? Let's do it. Rock on. All right. So, Josh, you said the survey found that 43%, am I getting this right, of team time goes into cleaning data, 43% of that. That's a lot of time before it can be used for AI or analytic workflows. So where do you see that time being spent the most? Is the problem at the point of collection, or is it a little bit further downstream? I'm going to flip this on you because, Josh, you brought us the survey. Dixon, I'm going to ask you to kick us off.
Sure. Yeah. So I think this one is really interesting, and depending on how you look at it, you could sort of go in either direction here. But I think that a lot of the hurt of doing the data cleaning and spending a lot of time doing it is felt wherever the data actually ends up living. But I think that's more of like a symptom versus cause thing, because the ingestion point, the intake point of the data is almost always where the problems stem from. And so when you clean dirty data or like inaccurate data or whatever you want to call it that you already have, you're not necessarily fixing any of the problems that got you to having it in the first place. And so I think it makes sense that a lot of people are spending a lot of time doing that. And I in a lot of conversations that I have with customers about this, what I try and do is less like, what data are you cleaning and like what tools are you using to do it? Because I care less about that than about how you arrived at the point where you're having to do it, and how can we fix that so that we get to a point where ideally you have way less of this to do. And it seems like a little bit counterintuitive, because you're like, oh, but I'm not actually fixing the data that doesn't look the way that I want it to. And you're not, but you're making sure that you're not going to end up with another huge pile of it later too. So
Yeah. Dixon's coming in with the problem solving, and because he's absolutely right. That's what you need to do. You look upstream for how you got here. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the Salesforce admins start to look at data deduplication and data cleansing as a part of the job. They keep a calendar block at the end of their week, or maybe it's a Monday morning thing. They go in, they triage these duplicate records that may have been created. Maybe they've got a bunch of Slack queue, that's just a bunch of, hey, we found this merge. We need this merge. We need this merge. We need this merge. And, as long as you're capable of doing it, as long as it doesn't, flood your calendar, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, this is part of my job. This is the axe that I have to grind every week. I'm trying to keep the analogy going.
We have a theme. Yeah.
But, it's when organizations start to scale, or when it's only when this gets really out of hand that they start to say, hey, I can't be spending all of Friday on this. And that's when they start to look upstream. It's rare, I think, unfortunately, that a lot of people have access to a problem solver like Dixon. And a lot of people start to think that things are just their job. And so they end up doing the cleaning where they're used to seeing the bad data turn up instead of looking upstream. So unfortunately, I think that's the problem we see a lot today.
I wonder too, on that note, Josh, if there's people that are, and I'm not sure that clinging is quite the right word, but holding on to some of those things because it feels like that is their job, and they're responsible for that, whether it's quality wise or maintaining their production level in the role. And what I think we're talking about here is opening up more space in their day for growth initiatives, rather than 43% of your time going into things that could be avoided, yes, and then having that time for other things.
Right. My emotional support messy data. Don't touch it.
That's exactly.
I think that's a part of the AI conversation as a whole, is this idea of, hey, this is what I do. I don't want to give it up necessarily.
Yeah.
But when you think about the more valuable things that you could be doing, like delegation to AI, that's the decision we as humans need to make. You do not need to be spending your calendar block on Friday afternoons merging duplicate records. You should automate that and be spending that time in a much more valuable way, perhaps finding out where the next opportunity that looks like all of these records are, or fixing it upstream, But I do think there is a bit of the cling, as you said.
Yeah, let go of your emotional support messy data, as Dixon said. All right. Well, so the research that you brought to us, Josh, was identifying that incomplete records, inconsistent values, and incorrect data. Those were kind of the three main ways that data quality is breaking down. Yeah. So I'm curious from what you've seen in the field, and Josh, I'll get you to kick us off, and then we'll hand things over to Dixon here. Of those three, if we had to rank them, I know we love all our children equally, but if we had to rank them, which one is actually causing the most pain?
I would point at inconsistent data in the context of AI, mostly because, and this kind of like bleeds into the context point that I made earlier, if in one system, an account is labeled as a company name, and in another, it's the legal entity that is that company, doing business as DBA, if there is that name field looks different, and then perhaps, I work in software, so our customers have like org IDs that are separate from anything on their side, and there's a number associated with them. If that's not all understood, if those relationships aren't clear, then you have an agent, or you have an AI, or if it's a human process, you have somebody trying to track down somebody who's got three different names, and I think that's where, especially with AI implementations, that's where the real struggle is, because without that contextual relationship building that's obvious on the record level, you're not able to get kind of like pull in all of that information. I think it's all damaging in different ways, but that's the one that I think for today's conversation is the most relevant.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide if I like fully or only partially am on board with you. I think that regardless of what I'm going to say, the least problematic one is missing data or like incomplete data. A lot of the ways that you can build agents give you the ability to have them collect information that they don't already have. Like, hey, if you're trying to, look up a customer's order and you need to verify them, you can go get their email address from them conversationally, and then you can use that as the thing that you need. So missing is like not quite as relevant depending on what it is that you're trying to do. And then I really think it's sort of toss up between inconsistency, because, again, at this sort of like systemic scale that we're talking about, that can be really, really, really problematic. And also like if the AI is not always as good at like looking at a thing as we are and being like, that's not correct. And then knowing that maybe I shouldn't use that as like a foundational point for whatever it is that I'm about to do next. We'll see that happen with people sometimes who like plug AIs into conversational tools, and then they use like speculation or rumor or something like that as objective fact. So I think probably inconsistency is the biggest challenge of like, how do I make sure that Josh S over here and Josh Straley over here and Jay Straley over there in these, 5 different systems that are all ours are all actually the same person and not 5 different instances of the same person. Yes. So I think we can
more Josh Straleys sounds great. All the Josh Straleys we can get.
I agree with that part wholeheartedly. Yes.
There are several of us, according to Facebook.
You're like, there's a few. Dixon, I want to kind of build on that a little bit. Do agents have different data needs than Data Cloud?
Ooh, yes. Yeah, they do. Let me see if I can think of a good way to sort of like make an analogy for this. Okay, so Data Cloud, or the artist formerly known as Data Cloud, now Data 360, is sort of like the engine that makes Agentforce go and the engine that makes AI agents go. So I might sort of make a comparison to like a library and a librarian. Like 360 is the library. It needs to have all of the stuff in it. It needs to have all the information in it. It needs to have all of the data in it. And to make the library function, you need to have it all organized, and it all needs to be categorized and, cataloged and things like that. And then an agent is much more akin to a librarian who needs to do a specific task and then goes to get the specific piece of information or multiple pieces of information that it might need to go and do that. And they can do it really easily because it's all organized, categorized, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of think of it as like a big, broad thing for Data 360 and the information that it contains or connects to. And then the AI agent, depending on what its role is, what its function is, and what data it needs to do its job, can go and get whatever like sort of hyper contextual or real-time data that they need to go and do that thing.
I like that. That's a good analogy. That's going to stick with me. For a second there, I thought we were going back to axes, and then you went to librarians, and I like it. That was a good.
No, I'm going to bring so many analogies to the table today. I don't know. It's always like some of these concepts can get like really kind of wild and super deep and a little like very meta. And so I find breaking them into stuff like that is a lot more helpful for me personally to talk about them than otherwise. So.
Yeah, I agree. We're dealing with things that are very meta, and we're dealing with things that are very buzzwordy. So the more concrete, the more real, the more practical we can make them, the better. Josh, I'm going to bring you back in here because one of the stats that kind of jumped out to me, we're talking about 3 in 5 AI decision makers saying that their AI produces results that conflict with data from other systems. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
That's a little bit scary. When you're working with organizations on Agentforce implementations, how often, or are you seeing how often does data quality become that main blocker? And then when you're in that situation, when you've been in that situation, Josh and Dixon, I'll ask you to weigh in after Josh wraps up as well. How does that conversation go? What is that actually looking like?
Yeah, so form assembly is one of these upstream solutions. We do form and data process or data intake process management and automation. So we view ourselves as kind of that gate at the start of the process, passing data downstream, into Salesforce and other critical systems of record. So when we're working with our clients and they're trying to, have better data to implement for Agentforce or Data Cloud or anything really from their own personal reviews and report building to AI implementations. It's all about, hey, how can I stop the bad stuff from getting in? Like I'm usually, where we pick up the conversation is they've been trying to scale. Higher ed is a vertical that we work with a lot, and so schools have had it tough over the last couple of years. They had to modernize over the last 20, and then the pandemic wreaked havoc on student populations and application styles, and everyone was relearning essentially how to get jobs done. And so a lot of schools actually, you've probably heard the story of the enrollment cliff where they were seeing less enrollment. A lot of schools saw a lot more enrollment. They identified new audiences. High school students started enrolling early into college for credit classes ahead of time because they were working through high school remotely and they were ready to get onto college. So there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of transition. And a lot of schools needed to scale very quickly. And so those problems that we were talking about data quality, where they had an application form for new students that worked for a long time, and it just dumped into somebody's inbox, that wasn't working anymore. They needed to respond to thousands of applications. And so when we hear, when we pick up the conversation with schools or any other kind of organization, and they're like, hey, my data quality is bad and my processes don't scale, that's where we come in. And we, again, we can't solve everything. We're not going to model the process for them, but we are going to allow them to very quickly get processes up and running that validate data on the front end, make sure it's complete, even if that's the kind of least risky. But we can also, put approval processes in there that bring somebody in to make sure that it's correct too. So that's where we pick up the conversation. It's, we ask you to, not necessarily at the strategic level, let's take it to one process and just say, hey, what do you need this process to do? Let's figure out where data upstream, some controls can help with that. And that's where we enter the conversation. And I bring Dixon in to complete the picture because he's working on that downstream in process.
Yeah. Okay. Not to keep going back to the same sort of concept here, but a lot of times when we're working with our customers and trying to solve problems, the data quality conversation is one of the very first ones that we have. With a lot of folks being like, we want to be leveraging AI and we don't trust the data that we have and we don't think we're ready and we need to do all this cleaning or all this editing or all this like wild data work with the, the tangled rat's nest mess that we have before we could do anything. And I understand that. I think a lot of times like software implementations and tech stacks compounded over time get really scary looking if you're not the person that did every single piece of it and you already know what everything is and where it lives. And again, like, no one is saying that you have to do everything everywhere all at once. And so the approach that I often recommend and that feels comfortable for a lot of people is like, hey, let's start with what do you actually want to do? You want to leverage AI. Okay, great. To what end? And that's like usually the very important first question. And then once you have that, then you can sort of back into, okay, if I want the agent to say, I work with a lot of customers who are like the governing bodies of sports in the United States, like the United States Tennis Association, et cetera, et cetera. And almost all of them have these really big like athlete handbook documents that are like hundreds of pages long sometimes even. And they have all the information in there that people might need to learn about the sport or about qualification paths for things or whatever. But not that many people are going to spend time combing through the entire thing to get what they want. And so, in this particular, sample example, if the thing that you want to do is fire up an agent to answer questions that people have that are answerable with information that lives in the athlete handbook. Great. That's not we have to solve our entire data problem right now before we can do it challenge. That's okay, where does the rule book live? And can we make it chunkable, searchable, et cetera, by the agent that needs that information? And that's a much smaller and easier problem to take down than, our data is a mess and we need to fix it. So again, getting really specific can be very, very helpful. And starting small can be very helpful as well, because that lets you like back into sort of very logically, what does this agent or this AI tool need to be able to do the things that we want it to do? Where does that stuff live? And what is its sort of level of health or accuracy? And then you can start taking things just a little bit at a time.
Yeah, and Dixon, you've brought this up a couple of times in a couple of different ways, that sort of why and to what end, which I think is just good life advice as well as good advice in this case. And what that was bringing up for me, and Josh, I'd love your thoughts on this. I'm really curious about where we started with that poll, and we had a couple of the different challenges, and we were talking about integration challenges, but we also talked about that kind of clear strategy or business case. Well, it seems like I'm wondering if those are the same, or if you think they are separate problems, because really, if you're hitting the integration challenges, is it because you haven't set that why or that clear, to what end answer, or, do you think there's value in kind of separating those two things out?
Yeah, I think it's kind of not lifestyle. It's kind of like a life cycle question too. If you are approaching your tech stack at the beginning of an implementation, perhaps it's a new build for Salesforce, and you think about, your data processes, the organizational processes, and you make decisions about the software that you use right from the beginning, then it is a vision problem more than an integration problem, because then you think about, hey, I need these tools here. I need the data to flow here, only under these circumstances. And if you take that holistic view with vision, with clarity, then yes, it is mostly, it's a planning problem at that point, because you choose the right tools. I think for a lot of organizations though, not everybody has the man, I don't know if it's an honor, privilege, or if it's a burden to have been there the entire time a CRM was in use and know where all the bodies are buried. Some people at organizations are, some people inherit things, some people are accidental admins. And for those people, they're inside of a building that this company is, they're building. I'm not great with my analogies. They're inside of a software ecosystem that they didn't build, that they need to uphold and maintain. And they can often feel like, hey, this is where I'm stuck. And the data flowing in, I have no idea where it's coming in, and something's busted. And so it can look like an integration problem for inside of it. Again, you could plan better. But if you do have something that's already set up and you're seeing bad data flow in, you can go out and you can solve that problem. Again, piecemeal. It's always better to take a step back and have a vision, but kind of where Dixon said, if you can chunk out a project and say, hey, at the very least, I need my application process to stop sending me a bunch of dirty data, you can go out and solve that. And we have a lot of customers that come in and they've got like one process that is just a screaming big problem. And they solve that, and then they slowly find that, I can have better data quality across my organization. Let's do that. So a little bit of
I love that. I want to push it even like a little bit more, because one of the things that I see a lot is I don't want to say this, like conversations that we have with people where they're like, this is the process and this is what we're going to do. And that sort of removes, a lot of times, like organizations, especially in nonprofits, but I'm sure in higher ed and also corporate customers as well, might not make the process function that way if they had their druthers about it. And it is only running in that specific way because they are limited in some capacity by the technology that they have access to, right? And so oftentimes one of the things that I'm trying to help break customers out of is this is an opportunity for you to like completely reimagine how you want this thing to work, instead of just lifting and shifting it from this old process that you don't like that much to the same process you don't like that much, but in a different place, which doesn't make very much sense to me, right? You have so much power in the technology that I think one of the fun things to be able to do is like, hey, does the process itself actually work for us at all? And can we change it? Like, is there a better way that we want it to go? Can we dream big? Like, one of the great things about agentic AI is it enables you to do things that would have been completely inconceivable before. Like, if I'm a nonprofit and I have thousands and thousands and thousands of donors every month, regardless of what size they are, before it would have been like pretty ridiculous to try and write a completely personalized thank you for every single donation that I get. But if I use agentic AI and I use the power of LLMs and contextual data that I have about my donors, it's super easy to do that. And I never could have done it before. So I also like to encourage people to like blow the world up a little bit in a way that like, not in like an aggressive evil villain way, but in like imagine it could be any way you want it to be kind of way, and then go from there instead of letting yourself be limited by whatever process you're already adhering to, which is a very long-winded way of saying like, hey, we could do even more.
But a great answer. And also Dixon Blue would make a fantastic villain name, just saying.
I'll add it to my list of other suggested professions that I have.
Yes. On your resume. Okay, amazing. Great answers. We are nearing the end of time. I'm going to try to sneak in just a couple of more questions, though, because I think there's a few more things that I'd like to cover with this crew here. Really what I'd like to get into, where we started, we were chatting about the fact that right now the pressure on a lot of the folks here in the audience with us is to be thinking ahead while also dealing with what's in front of them. You guys have already given us a few ideas, chunking the project, setting out the to what end, setting your vision to help you set those priorities. But I'd love to ask Dixon, maybe if you can kick us off, and then Josh, we can tag in as well, to get into, let's do like one step. If there was sort of a practical step one that a Salesforce admin could take right now today to start closing that gap, what would you suggest?
Ooh, okay. So I think as it relates specifically to Salesforce, You can do something natively inside of Salesforce called a health check that helps look at a couple of different things: security, system performance, data quality, and it helps sort of inherently identify in the data category specifically, like outdated customizations and IDs duplicates and IDs like inconsistent data across your org, and then gives you suggestions to fix it. So that's probably one of the first places that I'm going if I'm an admin and I have to do one thing right this second.
Yeah.
First step.
I think having the tools to do exactly that, like to say, hey, am I imagining it or am I struggling with something? Like, does our quality, getting that actual measurable, identifiable data quality check is a great idea. I'd actually refer to Dixon's last note where it's like, hey, look at your processes and think about how you actually need them to work rather than how they've been working for the last 4 or 5 years. After our conversation today, I'd say, hey, whether you're an admin or an architect, pull your head out of the sand a little bit and say, hey, is this how you want your job to look? Is this how the organization should be run? And then start to explore the possibilities, because the better future's out there.
Well, okay, so let's bring it home with that. So Dixon gave us the advice in the best, kindest way: blow the world up, see what's possible and open up for innovation. I think that's a super cool way to approach. We were chatting about change management being difficult, and this being one of those things that can possibly open up a lot of space in somebody's day so they don't have to cling to what is. They can feel comfortable blowing up the workload that they've got and finding new cool workloads. So let's paint that picture. Josh, I'm going to ask you to kick us off. We started, you gave us that stat, right? 3 to 5 hours cleaning data. So if we take that out of our day, what does success now look like for a team that actually has data quality right? How is their day-to-day changing? Paint that magical, wonderful world for us.
Yeah, I think that the thing that organizations start seeing when they have cleaner data in their system where they need it is they can start trusting it a little bit more. Whether they actually move on with a big implementation, whether they spin up a chat bot that answers questions about tennis rules or something that handles cases, I know that my time inside of organizations is a lot easier when we have the data we need to make decisions. So like improving data quality and improving the trust that you have in that data so that you and everyone else at your organization feels like, yes, we can move in that direction. Yes, that is a problem. I think that's huge. And then, again, that allows you to have more trustworthy experiences with AI, offer trustworthy experiences to your customers. That's the success, is a little bit of trust.
Love it. Dixon?
I have 2 sort of competing answers to this question, actually. The first one is you now have more space to do X take, which is, if you save yourself that amount of time, then ideally you can do something more strategic or more impactful with the time that you've bought back for yourself. We see it all the time in fundraising conversations with nonprofits. Like, hey, your major gift team is like wasting 5-10 hours a week, doing data cleanliness or like trying to cobble together reporting and things like that, when they could be nurturing major donor relationships or bringing in more revenue for your organization so you can use it to deliver all of the services and stuff that you do. And so you can sort of like expand the impact. The thing, and so there's that portion of it. The other thing is, even if you don't fill that space with anything, you have now created a much less stressed and higher quality of life situation for the people that work at your organization. And that in and of itself is an immensely valuable thing for you to be able to bring to the table, because it helps people that work at your company like working there and like their jobs and be happier people. And all of that, it doesn't necessarily directly compute to output, but I would argue that anyone who is in that particular frame of mind is much more likely to be good at their job. because their brain doesn't want to melt into mush all the time. So there's this sort of like soft version of benefits that you're bringing to the table by being able to do this kind of stuff as well. I think we missed that one more than I would like to admit, but it's very, very real.
Right.
Yeah, that feels very, and the psychology in that, I think, is something that's really important to acknowledge, that, when people feel like they've done study after study that a sense of purpose goes farther than a sense of happiness necessarily. That's why the pizza party doesn't work. But feeling a sense of purpose and production is what makes people feel great in their jobs. And so if you're hitting that, if you're allowing people to connect to that greater sense of purpose in their organization, they're going to stay. They're going to feel fulfilled. They're going to bring that to work with them. And yes, I love that. Josh, pizza's temporary, pride is forever. Fantastic.
Analogy.
Well captured. Okay, we're going to start to bring things to a close. Two things before I wrap things up. One, I promised you all that we were going to try to get to some live questions. It's my fault. I had too many questions for Josh and Dixon, so we're not going to get to any live questions today. But if you still have your questions, get them in, and we are going to make sure that everybody here gets answers back. So if you already asked a question, you will get an answer back. If you still have a question, you will get an answer back. So please get those questions in. Now, I have a favor to ask all of you before you go. I want to try a brand new poll. I'm really excited about it. We can now do emojis instead of words as poll answers. So I'm opening up a new poll now. This is the first time we've ever done an emoji-based answer, and I want y'all to try it. So you're helping me test run this today. So what we want to know is, has today's discussion helped your understanding of the importance of data quality for CRM and AI applications? This is not a trick question. We would actually genuinely love to know. And so we've got, basically our answers are like 5 stars. Yes. Josh and Dixon, check, check, check. Amazing. Nailed it. Or maybe a little bit more of like, yeah, maybe, we'll see. So this is what we'd like to know. And part of why we're asking this question is because we want to have Josh and Dixon back. We want to have these types of conversations again. We want to be able to build off of what we've talked about today. So let us know and help me use this fun new emoji poll, but also let us know if we sort of hit you in the feels. What's the no version of we hit you in the brains? Did we hit you in the brains today? And did we get you the info that you wanted?
Up to irreparable damage to Josh and mine's self-esteem. So
I'll take a home.
Josh and Dixon will be crying after the webinar if you don't. No, we're not bribing this. Okay, so as we get some answers in on that one, Josh and Dixon, I want to ask you guys to give our audience sort of a final, this is your last shot. I'm giving you guys like a Hail Mary pass here. If you haven't hooked someone or given them their insight, if they were in the phase, now's a chance to give them one more fun thing to think about. Dixon, I'm going to ask you to kick us off. Josh, you're going to be wrapping us up. Tell us one last thing that you would like the audience to walk away thinking about.
Yeah, you have to. I'm going to do it again because it matters this much. You have to have a good understanding of your why and your to what. I like to phrase that question as to what end. And if you understand your to what end, regardless of whatever the context is, it works exceptionally well in this conversation. If you know that, then it is the rest of the answer as to how do we achieve this get a lot clearer and a lot easier to manage than they do if you have a really squishy or mushy like end game defined. So that's my thing. If you understand to what end, everything else falls into place much more clearly.
I agree. Squishy vision is bad. And I think across the board, I think we can find that if you know where you want to go, it's better. I want to attach on, to this idea of like, hey, use your imagination. That is something that, so many bandwidth constraints have been removed with AI. Form assembly is a tool. My favorite things that I see people build on our platforms are things that we never would have expected. Huge processes, sophisticated little building things that they start with forms, and they found out they could do it, so they did, which is always tough when you feel like you're down in the mire. And I know, centering today's conversation on data quality and some of these very technical things can make us focus on, deduplication, I got to merge records. But really, if we can lift our heads up and look at the horizon, there's so much opportunity for enjoying our jobs more. for, better quality of life, as Dixon said. And my favorite part about our platform is our ability to kind of like help people do that, to automate some things. And just if you don't mind, I'd love to say, if you're deep in the Salesforce ecosystem, we do have a session just this week that you can access from the Docs panel. It's calling it the Building the Easy button. It's a way to access from Salesforce records forms that you can then edit records with to just like improve your process. It's a real small little thing that you can build that can be a lot of fun and save you a little bit of time. So, if you want to see some inspiration stuff, I'd love to see you all later this week. And you can find that and some other really cool sessions in our resource center. So thanks, Jess. Thanks, Dixon. I love talking about this because, for 15-ish people, we got 5 stars. So I appreciate that.
Great. I'll take it.
That's a whole chunk of people that are walking away feeling inspired. And we do have one more way that you can kind of connect with the Form Assembly team is by answering the poll that is currently up right now. We have a poll asking if you'd like a personalized demo. So obviously we've gotten a lot of great info today, and we've really gotten into an interesting conversation. And if you'd like to see this all in action, and that is a really important next step, please do click yes on that poll, Form Assembly. It's basically the easy button, right? Like save yourself 15 extra clicks. Talk about automation. Just click that one button. Form Assembly will drop right into your email inbox and set that up for you, so you don't have to do a thing. And there, as Josh mentioned, I just want to call out one more time the Docs tab full of resources and takeaways. So go start clicking around. Make sure you've got those open before you head out. All right, so that is, I think, everything that we needed to talk about today. I am going to say goodbye, Josh and Dixon, for now, but I hope that you'll come back and join us again, because this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more to get into, and I had so much fun with both of you today.
Agreed. Thanks, Jess.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. Well, we will wrap up our conversation with a couple of last final things here. I want to make sure that we get into our, let me pull up this wonderful slide here. So you can pull out some resources and make sure you hit the Docs tab on your way out the door. Make sure you click on that poll before you leave. I have a prize giveaway that I'm going to give away in just a second, but I also want to say that the wonderful Riley is going to open up a survey. We would love to hear from all of you. This is an actual official survey. This is not emojis, although I wish that it was. But we would love to know from you, did we hit you with the right information at the right time? Is this what you're looking for? Let us know if you have any thoughts on the survey. All right, $250 Amazon gift card going to Gary Jones of Pennsylvania. Gary Jones of Pennsylvania. Congratulations to you, Gary. Now, as always, we will follow up with you after we wrap, so stay tuned for that. And with that, we will bring things to a close. I want to say on behalf of the Smart Brief team, a big thank you to Form Assembly, to their special guest from Salesforce for making this event possible. Dix and Josh, you have really shared a lot of practical insights with us today. You've walked us through a lot of the conflict points, some really cool ideas, and I love it. We're going to get innovative. We're going to start thinking about our why. There's a lot of cool takeaways from the conversation today. Most of all, you've really brought the joy, the passion, the energy, and I felt all of that from our audience here today with us too. So big thank yous to all of you for joining in this conversation, for spending this time with us, engaging in the chat, asking questions, all of those great things. I hope that you're feeling inspired. I hope you're feeling equipped to go back to your teams to really address the data issues that you have today and start building towards that wonderful, bright, shiny future that you've got out in front of you. I can't wait to see all of you at a webinar again soon. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all. Bye.